All right, like I've said before, you guys are more than welcome to move down this way so that if I say something, you're more likely to hear it. And if you say something, I'm more likely to hear it. We are in Judges. And last week was the continuation or the restart of lesson 1. A couple of y'all that weren't here last week, there's a couple of copies of that. Well, that's from last week. Because I said we'd start about question number 12 on there. So we're going to blitz through the last of that and then get into chapter 2. So why were they able to accomplish what they accomplished, and what were they not able to accomplish? Well, the men of Judah attacked Jerusalem, and they wiped out a lot of people, but they did not settle Jerusalem. Instead, they left. They attacked the Canaanites in the hill country. They took the Canaanites in the hill country, and apparently they occupied that territory. They did not, however, it says, managed to conquer the plains. And there's a little statement there that says, because they had iron chariots. And I don't know if you remember when the Israelites came out of Egypt, but the Egyptians had chariots too. And what happened to those chariots? Well, they kind of got mired up in the mud that was on the bottom of the Red Sea, where the Israelites had passed on dry land. So it tells me that God was obviously not with them with their battle on the plains. Otherwise, those iron chariots would not have been a problem. I mean, just remember the walls of Jericho. Walls a massive problem, but when the walls fall down, not a problem. God could take care of chariots. He can take care of walls. So it tells me that God was not with them in that particular part of the battle. Now, we talked about Caleb before. Caleb was granted a special territory in the new land. Caleb was part of the tribe of Judah, so his inheritance was in that land. But he wanted the hill country. He wanted the hill country, and that was the land of Anak. And Anak was a giant. You know, when the Israelite spies came back and they told Moses and the people about giants in the land, they were not lying. There were indeed giants in the land. As a matter of fact, a descendant of this Anak is the one that is known as Goliath that David takes out later with a stone. But this is the land that Caleb said, that's my inheritance, that's what I want, give me that mountain, I'm going after the giants. And in Joshua, it even tells the names of those 3 giants that he took out in the conquest of his territory. Here specifically, it talks about one area within his territory that he asked somebody to say, okay, anybody willing to attack and take this territory for me? If you are, I'll give you the hand of my daughter in marriage. Now, I guess there's some dispute as to exactly what the relationship was with Othniel and Caleb. It sounds like he is the son of a brother of Caleb, but he could be a nephew, a nephew of a son or a nephew of a brother. It gets kind of confusing, but suffice it to say, there is some relationship there ahead of time. But Othniel goes, takes this land, and Caleb says, here's my daughter, take her in marriage. And then she turns around and says, okay, Dad, you've given us this land. How about giving us some water too? So he grants her then the upper stream and the lower stream, I guess, that flowing across that land. And that's an interesting story as well. How were they able to capture these things? Well, according to verse 19, the Lord was with them. When the Lord was with them, they did well. They conquered the territory that they were supposed to take. Why were they not able to conquer Jerusalem? I think twofold. One, they didn't stick around. And then 2, they didn't finish the job when they went in there. Judah first attacks Jerusalem, And it sounds like they conquer Jerusalem. They wipe out a lot of people, but then they leave. And Jerusalem, by the land promises that were given, was really sitting between Benjamin and Judah. So each may have a claim to it, although I think Benjamin probably had a better claim to it. But anyway, the Benjaminites go and do the same thing. They attack Jerusalem. They wipe out a bunch of people. They say, okay, that's fine, let's move on. So instead of occupying Jerusalem, they get busy about doing other things. So the folks, the Jebusites, move back in, and they remain in control of Jerusalem until the time of David. It's not until David shows up on the scene